Hello, it's Kath Berry here, and today I have Sharon Loerzer, who's here to talk to us about communicating with children. And I'm particularly interested in this subject as a parent and also as a practitioner who's looking to expand my practice to working with children. So just before we get started, could you tell me a little bit more about yourself and how you've come to be involved in this sort of work?
Yes, I am a trained Sasinian therapist. That training is a very deep training in seeing beyond the physical and in taking responsibility for everything that we do see and know. This was a deep training, so this has been 25 years since I did that training, and I still feel I'm using the tools now. I'm the mother of 3 children, grandmother of 3 children, and this path has led me to apply what I learned there to work with families. So my whole dedication is to the family. Children, I would work with many children who would be brought to me by their parents because they're having problems at school, or they're not sleeping, or they're peeing their bed, whatever it is. And I, over the years of working, saw that there's always a deeper cause. This deeper cause for the child, they're speaking to us. They're telling us what's wrong actually for them. Actually, their language is not the verbal language. That's not their original language. We teach them that language. So it's not even body language, it's a soul language. So this is expressed in so many different ways. So I started to explore that. I started, of course, to explore it first on my children. Sure. So I had to walk my talk. I had to live this. And I developed a course, which is my core course for parents, therapists, and child carers, to help us clear away anything that gets in the way of seeing more broadly. So it's not even certain tips that are going to get you to see. It's what is standing in your way that you don't see. So it's a personal journey each time. And this connects us then with the child in a different way.
So interestingly, you're saying it's not really about the child themselves, but you as an adult self putting up a barrier to really connecting on that child level with the children themselves. Can you think of an example or a time where you've seen this most strongly, or something that people could look out for in themselves?
Well, it all boils down to interpretation. We tend to interpret a situation or a child's actions or a child's illness on our own terms. And what it comes down to is actually hearing what the child is saying, not what we're capable of receiving. Yeah. So, an example, a small example. Let's say there's a mum and she's got a good friend and they both have kids, and mum wants to visit the other mum, and these kids have always played well together. And mum says, well, we're going to Johnny's house, and the child says, I hate Johnny, I don't want to go and see Johnny. But mum really wants to go and visit Maria, her friend, and she will actually only hear her own wishes. And I'm not saying everyone does this, but I've seen it again and again, that she'll try and convince the child, it's okay actually, you'll make friends once you get there again, or what, I've seen you play together for, weeks, so of course you're friends, we're going. It's not being receptive to what's going on with the child at that moment and what the child's really saying. It might be the child's having a bad day. Maybe he doesn't hate Johnny. But whether we're receptive to really hearing what's there.
Well, I've got a question for you, and this is probably for those that are watching that are therapists, or also parents. But, around sometimes, and my kids are 3, turning 4 and just turned 5. And that, often they'll say things like, I've got a tummy ache. And trying to differentiate what's a true illness versus, in our house, if you're sick, you get to watch TV. Mm-hmm. So that sometimes, and I take your point about listening to what a child has to say, but then sometimes trying to, as an adult, reinterpret, is there an ulterior motive, or what might be the issue, the other underlying issue going on. How would you approach a situation like, particularly when it comes to illness?
One of the basic precepts of what I teach parents is that a child is actually a full-grown, fully experienced soul in an emotional and a physical body that has less experience than us. That's the only thing that puts us a little bit higher up on the notch this time round. So when we're speaking with a child, when we are observing what's going on with the child, we keep that into account. Keeping that into account, then, we don't need to be afraid to actually speak to the child fully as a soul equal. If we're speaking to someone fully as a soul equal, we can actually say, I see you. I see that it may be that you actually would rather watch TV. And we might burst their little child bubble, but we're not bursting their soul bubble. Does that make sense to you?
And
So there's to have no fear.
Are there strategies of how you help engage a child on that level?
No, it's not really a strategy. It's the courage to see them fully and the courage to be seen by them. It's not a strategy. It's courage. Because once we start using strategies, they will at one point figure out that you're using a strategy. And they will either turn it around on you, or they will start ignoring it because it's only a strategy. That's what I mean, that the work that I do with any therapist or any parent is a very personal journey, because it gets us beyond using strategies. There are certain things to always look out for, always be honest. Yes, that's not a strategy. Yeah, don't be afraid to be seen, to be naked. In other words, if I'm not sure, maybe they will pick up on that. That's okay. Rather state, I'm not quite sure about this. Give me a minute. I'm going to give you my answer in 10 minutes. Take that time. They will respect that more than you trying to come up with an instant answer because of their demand. And perhaps that answer you're not feeling convinced about. That kind of transparency actually creates a deeper respect from them.
And can you give an example of a time that you've been working with a family with this technique and sort of the results that you've been able to achieve?
Yes, I've got a very nice one. A little 4-year-old boy who didn't like to go to the bathroom by himself. So he would wee his pants often. And the parents knew that this was not really a physical thing. This had nothing to do with his bladder. This was, he wanted mummy or daddy to take him to the bathroom. This was a call for attention. And it worked. They took him to the bathroom every time. And if they didn't, and if they didn't have time, he would wee his pants. Or he'd even not say it, and he would just wiggle around until he weed his pants, because that would really get attention. So they realized that. In working with me, what they came to see, what I made clear for them also, was to speak to his deeper self and say, your we actually is yours. You own it. You made it. You're responsible for it. So if you would like to get it to the toilet, you move your legs and you get your wee to the toilet because it's yours. You own it. You made it. You can listen to it. You can watch it. You can let it come out. And once they said that to him, not as a strategy, but from their deeper self, that they realized, oh yes, this is all about his autonomy. This is all about him owning himself. When they said that to him, it only took once, and he has gone to the toilet on his own since then. Because they didn't use a strategy to trick him into something or convince him. They spoke to his deeper self and saying, you've come here to be in this body. We want you to own it. Go ahead. Be yours. And he stepped up.
That's wonderful. Well, just in finishing up, are there any sort of gems that you have for people watching today? The aha little moment that for you were the things that made you really have a big realization about that this is where the future of working with children really sits?
I'd say that moments like what I just described, that happens in my practice so often. Again and again, I would say it's the consistency of the results. It's not a certain moment. It's that every time we apply this deeper communication where I see you. And this goes for adults as well. Most of the illnesses that we have is because we haven't been seen, and therefore we've stopped seeing ourselves. So if we start with little ones, it goes so much faster because they're anyway evolving so quickly that just one moment of seeing can change their whole life, and that means the whole life of their parents. So I'll go back also to the birth moment, and that's our first moment of stepping out into the world, where often the birth itself was a trauma or was difficult or put some certain type of pressure or direction for the child. We'll go back and maybe with homeopathy we'll heal that. But the moment that we see that, things change for the child. So I'm sorry I don't have like the aha moment. It's work. It's consistent and insistent being willing to be present and really very courageously saying, you can see me, I see you. And the results show up with every child differently. So it may be more subtle, it may be amazing. But I can say that there's 95% of change for the positive in the children I work with this, I wouldn't even call it a method. I'd say this courage to be fully transparent and see them transparently.
That's wonderful. Well, how would somebody go about finding you? What's the best way to reach you to ask you more questions about
Absolutely, with my email, my website, my telephone, obviously. But yes, please visit my website because there I have the contact information, and I do Skype work. I'm online. I like to work with groups. I like to work singly. I'm also very happy to give a completely free consultation on telephone if anyone's curious and would like to know whether this really suits them, whether this really suits their family, or whether this suits the type of work they do, because it is a journey. So the dedication to this journey might mean, first of all, saying, well, I'd like to hear, I'd like to talk, and see if this is part of my path or not.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Sharon Loerzer,
Yes.
and I really appreciate your time.
You're so welcome.
Look forward to working with you again.
A real pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this free webinar. Please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel and please share on social media. The world will be a better place when more people know about the benefits of acupuncture.